It's time for a quick shout out to some of our friends. The Old School Mini Bikes and Parts Facebook group. The Strictly Vintage Mini Bikes and Go-Karts Facebook group. The All About Mini Bikes Facebook page. Genuine New Old Stock Vintage Parts. The Vintage Snowmobile podcast. And the Muscle Car Show and Tell podcast. Ben Thomas is your independent AMSOIL dealer. Click the link in the description for your free AMSOIL catalog, or scan the QR code to earn the deepest discount by becoming a preferred customer. To advertise with Ben's Vintage Mini Bike podcast, the Vintage Snowmobile podcast, or the Muscle Car Show and Tell podcast, please reach out to Ben or Mike for more information. Details in the description of this video.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Vintage Mini Bike Lovers podcast. I'm really glad you could join us here tonight. We want to make this fun and we want to make this interactive. So if you're viewing this right now, please feel free to leave some comments for us. We would really welcome that throughout the show. But right now, if you can hear me, if you can see my face, please leave a comment in the comment area. Tell us where you are watching from in the country or outside the country, as well as whether you can hear and see us okay. Joined tonight by my co-host and producer, Mike LaPierre. Also joining us is Rob Hilditch. Rob is an AMSOIL distributor and very knowledgeable in the motorsports. And our live guest tonight is Bud Gordon. Bud, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
We have a pretty big lineup here tonight, and we've got a lot of things we're going to be showing, but I'd like to get right into it. So during the show, again, please leave those comments. We'll be touching in with our viewers as we go along.
So we do have some comments coming in. Sorry.
Go ahead. Let's take some comments.
So we've got Mike Castle in the house saying, looks good from Michigan.
Excellent.
We have Wes Parker from New Jersey in the house. Thank you for being here. Ryan Locke, Saginaw, Michigan, says we're coming in loud and clear. And Joe Dimino from Long Island, New York.
Joe is a new acquaintance of mine. I really appreciate you helping me out with those tires, Joe. Thank you so much. So, Bud, you have some connection to mini bikes, and you have been promoting vintage snowmobiles. And I had said to Mike, actually, why this podcast came about is because I said to Mike that I thought there was a natural tie-in between vintage snowmobile collection and mini bike collections. A lot of the guys have been starting to show, especially like your Rups and your Speedways. They've been showing both a snowmobile and the counterpart mini bike. Same true with the Bombardier Company and so many others, because back in the heyday of snowmobiles, you know, there was upwards of 200 plus manufacturers of snowmobiles, and everybody was trying to get into the recreational vehicle game because there was a lot of money to be made. And the same was true with vintage mini bikes. People were looking to find ways to do that. So, Bud, tell us a little bit about the Goffstown show.
Yeah, it's actually the Uncanonic Mountaineers of Goffstown Snowmobile Club. In 1990, we started a swap meet. And about 10 years later, we turned it into a show and swap with snowmobiles. A few years after that, a good buddy of mine, Gary Chafee, who's a mini bike collector, and I each had a Honda 70. And Gary says, hey, why don't we bring them down, put them on display? I say, hey, why not? You know, so it was around 2005, we brought our Honda 70s down, and they were so well received and there was so much interest, we decided, hey, why don't we make some classes for these? So the next year, I believe it was 2006, was the first official snowmobile and mini bike show and swap in Goffstown, New Hampshire. And I think we were one of the first in the Northeast to have an actual mini bike show, vintage mini bike show. At the time, I had not seen any around our area. But, you know, we've grown in leaps and bounds. We typically have around 20 to 25 mini bikes at any given event. It's not a huge show, but we do generally get around 60 to 65 snowmobiles. Mike's attended the show and done some video there, which he will be showing, I believe. And
yeah, let's roll some of that right now.
Faithful following there. It's a good show.
Cool. Yes, let me do that. I'm messaging with Rob right now. He's having some trouble logging in. So we're messaging backstage here trying to get that worked out. But
All right.
Yeah, let me roll a clip from that Goffstown show. This is from the 2019 show. Let's take a look right here. And hopefully when we're done, Rob will be back with us. It's taking a minute for this video clip to load.
Yeah, and while he's talking about that, 2019 and 2020, we were the only snowmobile mini bike show that actually happened that year during COVID.
Unreal. Crazy times.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Here it is. It's loading now. Stand back, everyone.
Just in case he showed up. So. I know. What the program?
So as far as audio with this, it's just ambient audio. So if anyone wants to comment on what we're looking at here, feel free to comment on, oh, you know, that's a such and such or whatever.
Yeah, some of those bikes were you knew quite a bit about some of those, Bud. So why don't you maybe sound in?
Well, the two you just saw in the front corner, that's a Honda Z50 that I had along with the CT70 that I was telling you about, was how we started this show. A friend of mine, Gary Chafee, and I brought our 70s. That's the 70 right there, the gold, candy gold. And I picked that 50 up out in New York about that year. These, I believe, are Todd Little's bikes. I don't know if you know Todd. He restores Hondas over in Keene, New Hampshire area. He's got some really nice stuff. He has a Honda CT70 that he put a 140cc engine in. Wow. And he uses it as a rider. Very neat bike.
Very popular riding bikes for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, they are fun, and they are big enough that most adults can ride them. I know we had a blast on ours when the kids were younger.
Rob, do they have a lot of those Hondas up in Canada?
Yes, they do.
And of course, now we're getting into the snowmobiles in the show.
I think that's been my goal, is to have, you know, a counterpart mini bike to a sled. I think it makes a nice.
I think they go well hand in hand. You know, like I said, when we started with the mini bikes added to the show, they were very well received. You know, it's something else to look at.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you said earlier, a lot of the guys that collect snowmobiles had mini bikes as kids. So it's,
yeah, you had some bikes, right?
I did. I had. I was telling you, it was I don't know what the brand was, but my dad bought it at Bradley's. It had a 3.5 horse Tecumseh on it, and centrifugal force clutch, and you know, it was a good first bike. And of course, from then on, after that, we had a Honda Mini Trail 50. I had I believe it was called a Tri-Sport 3-wheeler. It was more like a go-kart with big balloon tires on the back and the mini bike tire on the front. And I bought it used, and the guy that had it before me had put a Honda 90 engine on it with the 3-speed automatic, and you had to reach behind you to shift it. Fast little rig, a little dangerous, but it was fun.
Well, I think some of those came with the twin J-Lo also, you know,
yeah.
And yeah, they were pretty peppy. And I think that's kind of what led
And there
to
were a lot of different makes of them too in those.
Well, there were, but I
three-wheelers
think some of
pointed
this
out
is what
over the
led to
years.
the products liability suits, you know,
Yeah.
in the,
Oh,
the
yeah.
80s, and ultimately
Yeah.
the advent of the four-wheelers.
Yeah.
Didn't
Well,
Rupp make
these
one?
were prior to the like the Honda ATCs and that.
Right.
So they're a little bit different. They weren't as unstable as those ones with the three bigger balloon tires on. I also had a Takati 250 in the 80s, and let me tell you, those things were dangerous.
Maybe some of our viewers know which of the companies made the three-wheelers. I know there was the All Sport, which made the Tri-Sport, I believe is what their brand was in the model. But I'm not sure if Rupp or the other companies really got into that. So maybe some of our
Rupp
viewers
did.
can comment on that.
Yeah,
we've got comments plenty coming in, but go ahead,
built
Bud.
a little of everything.
Yeah, let's go through some of those comments, and then we'll get some final reactions from Rob.
Sure. We've got Keith Zebrig in the house saying hello. Nice to see you. Ben Adim from Camden, New York. That's your son, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Very cool. Now, Karen Kraus is in the house. That even rhymes. And she's from New Jersey.
Yes, Karen is the administrator of the Old School Mini Bike and Parts page. Thank you for joining us.
Robert Whitaker from North Carolina.
Hi, Robert.
My good friend John Spranger Jr. is here from Elon, Wisconsin, saying hello. Ken Crozier says hello.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Our mutual friend Rich Shad is in the house.
Hello, Rich.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you have a comment?
I was saying, I know Ken from a lot of the snowmobile shows. Good guy.
Nice. John Komar is here from Las Vegas.
Happy anniversary, John.
Cool deal.
I'm glad you have your priorities straight.
Yes. And here's some comments talking specifically to this conversation. John Spranger Jr. says that he had a red Mini Trail 70 that he used to get back and forth to his hunting stand.
Very nice.
And this might be regarding the three-wheelers. Keith Zebreg is talking about a Muskin Dune Cat. Could that have been a three-wheeler?
That I'm not sure. I know they made the four-wheeler.
And then Larry Eagle is in the house saying hi-ho from Michigan. Owasso made in Michigan, he says. That must be a brand of mini bike.
Very nice.
And then Ken Crozier is saying hello back to Bud because Bud said hello to him. Oh, and then Keith Zybereg is correcting himself. He says Tri-Cat, not the Dune Cat.
Yeah, very cool.
But yeah, please continue the conversation.
So Rob, but did you catch your eye? Can we look for one for you to start riding at the shows?
I had them years ago when I was a kid, and we still.
Oh yeah, what'd you have?
The Honda 50, and we would put two people on it and go out riding.
I'm pretty sure you were not alone.
We have one of the little Keystones, just a 3.5 horsepower for.
There was a Keystone here. Did you see that one?
Yes, there is a Keystone in there.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that because that was very prevalent in Canada.
That is also in the still pictures that Mike has.
And we use it for a pit bike to run back and forth the outhouses at the races.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was going to comment on that, how popular those little Hondas were as pit bikes at the races, drag racers especially. Here's my good buddy Gary Chafee.
Called Shriners,
this photo here, I'd like to make a comment on this. This was 2007, I believe it was. We had a hurricane come up, and we almost had to call the show because of rain, but it is a rain or shine show. So Gary came up with this umbrella hat. So he's riding around the show with this on his Honda 70 with this hat on. So he had to get a picture of this.
Nice.
But we actually, considering the weather and the remnants of the hurricane, it turned out to be a pretty good show. We had, I want to say there was about 40 sleds that showed up, and I don't remember the number of mini bikes, but everybody just put up their tents and had a good time.
Very nice. Rob, you were talking about the Shriners. That was very popular down here too with the parades and mini bikes. What was your experience?
Yeah. At all the parades, they have mini bikes, and there's another group that has go-karts. And yeah, some of those guys are a little too big to be riding them, but they put on a good show with them. They're crowd pleasers.
For sure. Yes. Very, very popular for restoration guys too to have one of the Shriner bikes.
Yeah. I know
Well,
the
very nice.
Slingers, they use the Trizinger Yamahas. I used to have one of those also for the kids, but that was another one that my daughter didn't know how to use the throttle properly. It was either idle or wide open. And I was afraid she was going to hurt herself, so I had to let that one go.
Sure. But if people would like to participate in your show or get more information about it, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yep, absolutely.
And
The
I'll
show
pop the
is in the
graphic really
fall.
soon.
It will be Saturday, October 26th, 2 weeks after Columbus Day. It's held in cemetery property, not in the cemetery, in Goffstown. And it's a fairly decent sized field, as you can see by the video that Mike showed. We generally get around 20-25 mini bikes and 60 to 65 snowmobiles and a fair amount of swappers in there. It's a good time. We look for sponsors to cover the trophy. So if anybody is interested in sponsoring a trophy for the show, you can contact me. Mike can put up the flyer again later. You can contact me through my phone number or my email address. And last year we had a little over 60 trophies we handed out. We also do a raffle, like a penny sale type raffle. Dealers and businesses donate items that we have in the penny sale. And we offer food. The food tent is sponsored by Balboni Landscape Design. And we give dash plaques to the first 50 entrants, which the dash plaques are sponsored by Strong Beginnings Learning Center in Goffstown. And, everybody comes down. We have a pretty faithful following, and everyone seems to have a really good time. And here's the Keystone we were talking about earlier.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No suspension.
right. That's basically the type of bike I first learned on. Was the Keystone, but yeah.
And when we were talking about the tri-sports, in this image here in the middle,
That looks like something like,
looks like the backside of one, doesn't it?
Right. The one I
It's
had
kind
was
of
a
a
little
chopper
different. It didn't have that big fiberglass on it, just the seat. And the engine area was wide open. Like I said, it had a Honda 90 on it. The front looks very similar, though. I don't think the handlebars were quite as high or adjustable. They were more like your typical mini bike handlebars that were just right in front of you. But fun little rig. Had a blast on it.
Very nice. Cool. Well, cool. Any comments coming through right there, Mike?
Yes, we've got Lanny Yakel talking about the MTD Columbia Mudbug trikes.
So several companies as we've talked through this, right? Heald was another one that came to mind for me.
Yeah. And MTD must be the same people that were making snowmobiles and lawnmowers, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. I don't know that history of that company.
Pretty big company. I would say so.
And then we've got Vince Cuoco in the house. He's with Vinny's Minis. He's in the house from Florida. And then, here we go. Karen Krause says that was an all sport. She thinks it's a MTS 30.
Yeah, they were with the fiberglass. That was a big part of their design to have that all shielded.
I didn't have time, but there was a info sheet on the front of it. And if I had had time, I could have looked up who owned it and give you the actual model, because I do keep a list of who showed what. But unfortunately, that picture didn't show the front, so I didn't have the info tag. And my files out in the garage it would take me a little digging to find it. So
very good. Well, I'd like to plug an event that's coming up next, and we've got a video from the Shooks Farm, and it's their 3rd annual Mini Bikes on the Farm. And it's going to be August 9th and 10th in Central Lakes, Michigan. And we've got a little video just showing some footage from past events there. At the end is a QR code. If anyone is interested in registering or finding out more, you can scan that QR code, or you can look them up. They do have a Facebook event page, 3rd annual Mini Bikes on the Farm. Let's roll that. It really looks like an awesome event. So I would encourage anyone in the area certainly to check that out. It looks like a really cool place to ride mini bikes. Honestly, they've got food trucks there. They've got a winery right there. So it really is a nice destination, and they cater to people riding their mini bikes right there. So as you can see, it looks like a great setting to ride your minis.
I was just going to ask that question, Ben. A couple times in the snowmobile vintage, we've had vintage snowmobile places that do a big run with all the old snowmobiles. I was just going to ask you if they ever do that with mini bikes, but I see they do.
Yes, this is not a show per se, but I could see them really turning it into that and having, one part of the day being a show. I think that would really bring people out too, because, you work so hard on these mini bikes, same with the snowmobiles, and you really want to, show them off and have people enjoy them. I know that's a really common theme between the mini bikes is just that nostalgia, remembering what it was like when we were young, riding these things, and other people coming up and say, hey, I had one of those, or my brother had one of those. I broke my arm on that one. That was just all the stories that you hear, attached to these. And that's, part of the fabric that, it's woven through all of us, really, that same thread, if you will, really. We have that common denominator. And, this is a time in our country where we really need to bring people together. And, mini bikes really do that. Same as the vintage snowmobiles, vintage cars. There's not differences amongst people when you get together like this and you find out there's so much we have in common. So I really do encourage people to really come together. And we need some positivity in this world right now.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is that time of the show, Rob. We are going to turn it over to you for the AMSOIL promotion.
Okay. I've been an AMSOIL dealer for close to 50 years now. Mike and Ben are also AMSOIL dealers. AMSOIL was the first 100% synthetic oil to be AI approved back in 1972. That oil is still available, same ingredients that I make back in 72 as it is now. It still passes all the new qualifications and everything. An oil that's good for 25,000 miles in 1 year, gives you better gas mileage, longer fuel life, longer engine life, pours at 60 below zero. It's an all-season oil. It makes your engine run 20 to 50 degrees cooler. But for this broadcast, we're going to emphasize the benefits of the small engine oil. Now, people are asking, why do I need a small engine oil? The small engine oil is high in zinc. These older mini bikes, they have cams, lifters, rockers in it, and they need zinc. Zinc was a lubricant. All the new oils don't have zinc in them because of the old 2 sensors and stuff like that. So we have a small engine oil available for you. Some of you want a 10W40. If you have a clutch in the bike, you want a motorcycle oil that's clutch compatible. But just for the ones with this difficult clutch, the small engine works perfect. AMSOIL also has a great product for the ethanol problem. A lot of these bikes, the tank of gas might last you a month. So you want to add something to the fuel for the ethanol problem. And AMSOIL has a great program where you can sign up as a preferred customer. under Mike or Ben, and you get to buy the products directly from Amsoil, save 25%. You order a case of oil, you save $50 on a case of oil. Or if you just want one of the Amsoil catalogs that tells you all about the Amsoil products, and in the catalog, doesn't matter what product you're talking about, we have the prices right there, what the retail price is and what the preferred price is. We show you what the price is and how much you save. Anybody that orders $75, $100 worth gets free shipping. And plus this month, we also have, Amsoil came out with cleaners and all that. So we got this new cleaner product available for an extra $5 when you order your product. I think it's a $20 item for only $5 if you order $49 worth of Amsoil products. Now, there should be a link down below that you can click on with Ben's Zettel number and all that. And on that link, you can either get a free catalog or sign up as a preferred customer and buy directly from Amsoil, have it shipped right to your house, and save 25%. And you don't have to buy a full case. You can buy 2 bottles of that, 1 bottle of this, mix or match, you do whatever you want. But it's a great way to buy the product, great way to save money, and get a big discount. And by you buying the product, it helps cover the cost of putting on this show. Your turn, Ben.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. And Amsoil has so many other products as well. You know, metal protectors. They have lubricants like grease and other things that you use in the shop anyway. So if you want a catalog, check out that description. But better yet, become a preferred customer. So next, we're going to meet John Komar. Now, John, off to my side here, if we can look. Nope, that other side. We've got that little turquoise bike there. Now, I got that from John. John and I were watching that same bike on eBay. And John lives out in California. And John ended up with it. And we were talking back and forth about it. And John is a really serious collector. There's no logistical hurdles that he can't overcome. And so when he got that bike, there was another bike also from Ohio. I believe that one came from Indiana, but he got one from Ohio. And then this one came up for sale, and I just had to have it because I really loved it. So John and I work back and forth on trying to help each other out, and he's a great guy. So let's roll that video of John's a couple of bikes that he wanted to highlight.
Good morning, everyone. John Komar here at my mini bike garage. I'm going to show you this morning my 1969 vintage trail horse mini bike I acquired about a year ago. So I'm going to take you into the shop here and show you around the bike. So come on in. Open the doors here. Excuse the mess. But up on the platform this morning is this 1969 Trail Horse Mini. I picked up a year ago from a guy back east, don't recall where, but it's a beautiful piece of history, untouched, unmolested. I had Ben Thomas help me with some ideas to get this thing cleaned up without doing too much to it. I think it came out really well. I actually used Dawn dish soap. But a very cool piece of history. Every time I look at it, it brings me back to my childhood. But yeah, just a nice piece of history here this morning. And while I have this on the table, the gentleman sold me all the original paperwork with the bike, so I have all these original documents that came with it, which is kind of really neat. Have the owner's manual. Looks like he paid $300 for this at one time, but it has all about the engine. So I thought that was really something to have with this bike. But there's the right side going to the back fender here. She's a little beat up on the seat here, not too bad. Love that 7-hole muffler. the sound it makes when this thing's running. Replace the chain. That's pretty much the only thing I've done on this is the chain and rebuild the carburetor and some new oil. But other than that, I have not done anything besides clean it up. So here is the Trail Horse, 1969 Trail Horse. GTO 300. We got my guard dog there this morning, going crazy. But yeah, just a beautiful piece of history. Didn't replace the on-off switch because I don't know, I just felt it was a little too much for a newer switch. I don't know if I can even find one that would match that. But like I said, just a great addition to the family of mini bikes I have here. One more quick peek around here. And we will be back. I'm going to pull down another mini bike here off the shelf and set her on the table here, the work table, and show you another one. Thanks for watching. Hope everyone is enjoying this hobby as much as I am. It just takes me back to when I was a kid, young boy, working mowing lawns to try to acquire mini bikes. Here it is, the general appliance build. Original grips there, kind of like that. And I was able to get some fenders from a member. I have not re-chromed them. They probably should be redone. And you'll notice I have the original Carzile tires. They're double Indian head. No cracks. Tires in great shape. Medium blasted the rims and did it in a silver finish. I kept the original clutch cover from when it was purchased. Did a nice little orange powder coat. Had a local guy here make me the seat for this in white, kind of digging the white. And yeah, Nelson muffler I had chrome too. This is original, would have been original muffler on the bike when it was sold. Had them go through and redo the muffler with chrome on the tip here. You'll notice the tires are really nice. I'm going to go through and redo the motor, and I'm going to get the fenders sent out to chrome. Wasn't happy with the outcome of the gentleman that did the motor. Should have just done it myself, but nevertheless, it's here in the bike frame now. It does actually have a plug for lights too, so it's a stator motor. Get to finish it off with some throttle cables and a brake cable. This is going to be the brake that runs off the clutch brake. But yeah, those tires, kind of hard to find those in that condition. I was kind of impressed when I saw this bike. But there she is. And like I said, next year I plan on going through the bike and then doing all the knick-knack stuff. I'm going to redo the fenders and have the motor redone and repainted. I hope you guys are enjoying this video of this classic bike as much as I enjoy it sitting on my wall. Dude, I like seeing the thing. So yeah, it's just one of my favorites. Good morning, John Comar here in the Mini Bike Garage. Going to show you my 1970 JCPenney Golden Pinto. Pretty much an all original Survivor bike. I believe they did redo the wheels and the sprocket, but other than that, pretty much all untouched. So here we go. Here she is. Just a beautiful bike. I had to have it. I had my dad pick this up for me in South Carolina. Seen it for sale for a while, and I'm like, man, I got to make this happen. So I asked my dad, hey, if the guy drops it off to you, will you hold it for me while I get my shipper to come get it? And he said, yeah. So here it is, and original clutch. Chain guard. And there you go, that 7-hole Tecumseh muffler. Gotta love those. Love the way it sounds. I need to do some carburetor work to this one. It does not really want to run correct quite yet, but and there's a scrub brake. Looks like it's worn down, needs a new pad, or I don't even know if it had a pad. I think it's just aluminum there, but yeah, great little running machine. Besides the carburetor once in a while goofing up on me. And then we come up to the rear end of this vintage. To the right side. Yeah, like I said, I just every time I open the doors to the shop, I just takes me back to the 70s for me. I don't think I'll ever get enough of this. Actually become quite an addiction as of late. Just acquired a couple more bikes, so hope to have those in a few weeks and be able to share with you guys the progress on those as well. But yeah, 1970 Golden Pinto sitting here up on the rack this morning. Original engine. Probably not the original gas cap, but this another awesome piece of history. And I hope you guys are enjoying this video as much as I'm enjoying having this as part of my collection. Go back around it a little bit here. So you guys have a great day. I'm out to Vegas for my anniversary this weekend. Stay safe, and look forward to sending and sharing more of my projects with you guys in the future. Thanks to Ben Thomas for allowing me to send him these videos, and have a great day.
Pretty nice, huh? I was watching some of those comments. Everyone was really digging that original patina on the 69 Trail Horse there that's showing right now. What do you guys think?
Nice
Trail
bikes.
Horse was made by who?
Trail Horse was made by General Appliance.
It's
And
funny,
the
as we're
couple
looking
times-
at the bikes on there, I'm noticing the simplicity of those old mini bikes and how they all use the same basic setup with the tubular frame and the steel engine plate, and the different ways of braking, either by the clutch or on the
Or the
rear
back
wheel.
tire.
Yeah, they were just so simple.
I don't like the idea of the brake of the back tire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That one's a little different.
a little primitive, yeah.
He
Yeah.
mentioned a couple of times about the exhaust 7-hole. Is there also a 5-hole one?
No, the 7-hole was just that particular design. The Taylor Muffler Company, Nelson Muffler, that if you see the number of holes, it's just, that's why they call it that. It was exited out the rear. As opposed to what was more traditional on some lawnmowers in later years with the hole in the center and, the muffler chamber around the baffle that ran through the center. So this has a unique sound, very popular. It was, it's true to what would have been on the bike new.
Can you get those as like new old stock parts, those 7-hole mufflers?
There's somebody that's remaking those. They're not exact, but there is a company, I believe, remaking those. Same thing with what they call the dog leg muffler, which has the piping and then the smaller, what looks like a lawnmower muffler on the end. The Taylor company made those. So a lot of parts are in reproduction from various companies.
Nice. And we have tons of comments coming in here. Let me find my place here. I think this is where we left off. Ken McGee says, dang, John, that's a super clean original. Very nice. Melissa Griffin is in the house saying hello. Nice to see you. Robert Whitaker says, just picked up a 69 70 Powerdyne rail chopper. Very nice. David from Alaska Railroad, our good friend, says, I never owned one, but I had a buddy in the late 70s that had a Rupp, and he was so jealous. Doug Grawl says, nice bikes, John. Lanny Yakel says, pretty cool from Michigan, or Midland, Michigan. Keith Zybreg says, great bikes. Robert Whitaker says, those are super nice examples, John. John, of course, is the gentleman who made this video for us. Vince Cuoco says they offered chrome exhaust strap out the back and up with a guard. And then Joel Simbesma Sr. says, very nice. And there was an observation I make. They were talking about Karen Krause. It sounds like maybe she makes seats for these. Am I close with that?
She does. Karen, I'm on Karen's list, right, Karen? You're going to be making me a seat for one of my choppers. Karen is an expert, and so she really, people really value the work she does. She does a great job.
Nice, nice. I'd like to see more of that. Maybe have that on a podcast sometime. Well, cool. Yeah, please continue, Ben.
Well, John, as I say, great guy. I appreciate him popping in to say hi to us while he's on his anniversary celebration. But these bikes, you heard John talking about the nostalgia, right? And the comments coming in, David from Alaska Railroad remembering his buddy that had one, a Rupp up in Alaska. This is part of our history, and I think it's really great. And this is something we can pass down to the next generation. I was watching a video on Motor Trend about mini bikes, and I'm going to probably feature that video and maybe the maker of that up in an upcoming podcast. And what he was really talking about is some of the guys talking was how we learned how to fix things, how we learned how to, problem solve. And mini bikes are really, really making a resurgence in part from that nostalgia, but also because, people like myself, we want our grandkids to know what we knew, and I remember my grandparents trying to educate me about what they knew as kids, and I think that's really full circle is, if we don't educate the next generation and really bring them along, some of this stuff gets lost. And I think mini bikes, it would be a shame, honestly, because, the history around them is so rich. It really is. So I really looked forward to exploring that more with people and that tie-in and that nostalgia and how it really shaped our country and drove the economy, quite frankly, in those early 70s and late 60 years. So any comments, guys, about John's bikes?
Nice collection.
Very interesting. Yeah. Nice original. I love that style. Like I said, the simplicity of them. And one of the comments that one of the gentlemen made, it reminded me of my first experience on a mini bike. He had mentioned a chopper, and I had a friend who had a homemade chopper mini bike, and it was chopped so high it didn't steer very well. And I was riding it through the field at the bottom of the field by my parents' house, and I lost control, went right through my father's tomato garden. He was not happy. But yeah, I mean those, and it's funny because I wound up eventually owning that chopper, and I did learn how to ride it better. But that was my first experience driving a mini bike.
That's awesome.
And I'm
That's
surprised
awesome.
you found that one with still original tires on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's nice. Yeah,
I have the raw pictures John had given me, and like so many contributors, and I'll say this now, if anyone out there would like to feature a bike, your project, you can certainly, provide raw, uncut photos, video, whatever you'd like to do, and I'll put that together. And so it's fun to do that, and I really enjoy it. And you can email me directly at bensvintageminibikes@gmail.com. And some of the footage, if it's too big, we'll use the Google Drive. You can let me know, and we'll share the Google Drive so that you can upload larger things. So John had said good morning right in there. So John had sent me a bunch of stuff, and I said, John, I don't know, I'm trying to put this together, and I really want you to do an introduction. Can you just give me a little video? And this is like, our time, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., I think it was, and his time was like 4:30. And he says, yeah, I'm having my coffee. He says, but I don't mind. I'll go out there and take another couple of videos for you. So, I've had it. That'd be great. I appreciate you. And so he literally did 3 new home videos for me. So I still have a bunch of other stuff that I'd like to put together from John. It is time consuming, but I think what the end product that you end up with, and really seeing some of the transformation of how these mini bikes go from, their as found condition to cleaned up, that really, it's just amazing what you can do. And, as some people say, they're only original once. So if you can really keep it original, it adds to its, not only its value, but really to me, its interest value, really, it's as condition, as ridden, or how somebody, used it. So please send those videos in, and we'd love to share your footage. We'd love to, share your collection, whatever you have, with our viewers. I'd like to turn our attention to the Polaris Trail Tractor that Ken Crozier told me about. Now, I met Ken probably like Bud did at various snowmobile shows. He's an avid Polaris guy, heck of a great guy. And he had told me he would send me some footage of his Polaris Trail Tractor. So let's watch that. So I thank Ken for sharing that footage with us. It was an interesting story he told me about that. I ran into him at one of the snowmobile shows, and he was telling me about the fact that he'd gotten in touch with a guy named Aaron Johnson, whose father, David Johnson, was one of the founders of the Polaris Industries. He needed some information about this trail tractor, and the gentleman, Aaron Johnson, was kind enough to send him some original copies, I believe. Not sure copies are original, but some of the owner's manual, some of the parts lists, and Ken was able to find some original parts, including a belt, to get it functioning. So that's really cool, you know, that somebody would get out of their way that way for someone to help them like that.
Nice.
Those, you know, early utility vehicle is what that was. You know, if you look at some of the advertising, you know, they were advertising that for hunters and sportsmen. People wanted to get out in the bush, and I'm sure up in the remote areas of Canada, there's probably a few of those still, you know, hanging out there somewhere around. So if you find any, please let me know.
I don't think I've ever seen one.
They're really, really cool looking, you know. And
look heavy duty.
That the back is like a tractor, like an ag tire on it. You know, it's got the traditional V pattern on it, the chevron pattern.
I like it when they have the original brochures with it and all that too, eh? Because that's hard to find, brochures.
Yeah, and that really is. That stuff gets lost, unfortunately. Owner's manuals, things like that. So it is a nice little piece of history when that can be preserved with it. So we're coming up on top of the hour. We've got a couple more things to go through. Let's go right into the video that Mike Castle provided. And you gentlemen that follow the Muscle Car podcast will appreciate this. He modeled this after a particular American Motors Corporation Rambler. So I won't give it all away. We'll watch that video and comment on the other side.
Okay, so we're outside taking a look at what's really my first custom build, and I call it the Ruttman SC/Rambler, and I'll show you the car that it's modeled on, of course, the old famous AMC. And if you take a close look, where the Ruttman logo usually is on the clutch cover, you have the American Motors logo, and that's a 2.5 horsepower Briggs that had to be modified slightly in order to work with this engine because it didn't have the 4 screws on the PTO cover. So the star of this bike, of course, is the seat, which was done by Brad Copeland out of V-Pro Vinyl in Woodstock, Georgia, and he just did a wonderful job making my vision become a reality. And what you basically have is 1.5-inch pleated marine vinyl, and then the white, which is kind of an off-white actually, but you know, closely to tie into the frame, and the welting, which is red. So you've got the same theme along the lines here. And then of course, carrying on with that, you've got the red hand grips, and the red hand grips are picked up by cut off parts of that to use as the foot pegs, as opposed to the usual tips of canes. Zoom around to the front. Those spacers were really high quality cut and milled to specs by Matt Tech in Flushing, Michigan. Does a great job, and I'm so grateful that he, matter of fact, Matt did underneath here, and I haven't taken it off. Maybe so. Matt just milled this piece here, this out of a angle, and got it to the specifications, threaded these to hold the clutch cover itself. And we had to do that because there weren't any screws in the the standard 4 screws in a PTO cover on a larger engine. So what we did is we kind of just used some longer screws there to put it into the existing holes, and it worked out fine. Notice too, the red theme is continued on the engine plate. So that was kind of a cool touch, and we'll turn this around and show you the other side. Here we go on the right side of the bike, and of course the most obvious thing is the red cowl cover, starter cover, and you can see again that that we have the red matching exactly on the engine plate. This custom paint job was done by Red's Bodywork and in Flint, Michigan. And they did a glaze over it, and then they shot it with the white and clear. And there are things that I will probably change for the next time I show it. I'm hoping to have show chrome fenders on it, and you know, I don't know, a few other little touches. It could use a good cleaning right now. I've had it out lately, but yeah. So this is the SC Rambler, Ruttman SC Rambler, and it's based on an older frame that really, you know, couldn't be restored. There was no original paint or anything in it, and so it turned out well. It turned out how I imagined it.
Yeah, very nice. Mike did a great job, and Mike is also indexing the old mini bike guides. And so in the mini bike guides, there is all types of information about these old mini bikes, and he has it cataloged and indexed, and he has it online at Mini Bike Guides Guide, I believe is his Facebook page. And we plan to feature him a little bit more with that project. I had asked him, you know, whether there was any ads for the Trail Horse, for instance, and within a matter of minutes, he came back and told me exactly which editions of the mini bike guide, what pages, and what the content was for all of those ads. So it's a tremendous resource that he's put together, and that's a lot to abstract. So I commend Mike for taking on that project. But he did a great job on that bike. So what do you think, fellas? I mean, it'd be nice to have that showed with that Rambler, huh?
Yeah, that's a beautiful. That might make a heck of a combo.
That's a good looking bike, and I've seen other people at car shows with a mini bike matches their car. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, we have a couple of other.
It brings the kids out of people, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, right. And what's nice is he had this vision, and he was able to pull it together using, you know, some resources from various people to make it work. And so he did a tremendous job, as I said.
Nice. Yeah, we have comments aplenty coming in. Let's see, where was I? Okay, here we go. This is talking about when Bud was talking about his crash on that bike. He says, Robert Whitaker says, we all remember our first crash. Absolutely. And then John Komar says, hello from Vegas. Ken McGee says, yes, keep it original. Joel Sibesma Sr. says, what percentage of mini bike owners are mini bike hoarders? That's an excellent question. We could do a whole podcast on that, I imagine.
I'd say near 100.
Yes. Honestly, we don't need published data on all these things.
Get a psychologist in here and break us all down, you know. And, David from Alaska Ruro says that Polaris would look very nice displayed next to my TXL, talking about a matching thing for a theme. He's talking about that Polaris bike we were looking at a few minutes ago. Ben Nadim says Ken had the trail tractor at the Cortland Vintage Snowmobile show last fall. Never seen one before. Probably will never see another. Cool. Lenny Yakel says, seen a bike on the marketplace with a Maytag motor for sale. Interesting. Wes Parker says, nice, with a thumbs up. Ed Kubiez says, love this AMC themed mini bike. Mike Castle says, thank you so much. This is his bike, I believe. Keith Zybreg says, cool bike, Mike. A mini bike maniac says, looks sharp, Mike. Mike Castle says, thank you to Ed. I love this back and forth too, this whole community thing going on in the comments. This is wonderful. Ken McGee says, love that AMC bike. Very cool. So this bike has been very well received on this podcast for sure.
Very nice bike indeed. And Next, I'd like to actually go into just a montage video of some trail horses that I put together. You know, trail horse is my favorite bike. I'm gonna step aside there for a moment. You know, now you know why. But I'm going to feature on the podcast actually a tribute build that I'm doing for my dad. Bud had asked me, you know, how long I've been involved in mini bikes, and I literally, when I was 4 and 5 years old, I was exposed to mini bikes, and my dad sold them, and I was his best salesman. I would test drive an Indian MM5A, and in fact, there was one on the video that we showed earlier from Bud's show, a little silver one. And so, you know, I was involved with, you know, taking engines apart and, you know, really watching that whole business as a very young boy. And I kind of lost touch with that as I transitioned to motocross bikes and then, you know, to road bikes and whatnot. But I was really glad to reconnect with my roots. So I'm really doing a tribute bike to my dad, and it's based on a trail horse chopper. It's really very unique in that you had asked earlier, Rob, who made those trail horses. Well, General Appliance was ultimately bought out by Arctic Enterprises. And I believe there's a tie-in to the purple frame I have to that traditional magenta color that Arctic Cat used as a highlight color on their products. So I will definitely be featuring more about that bike as we go forward in the podcast. And I want to thank so many people, in particular, Tom Dreswicki and John Brannon, for helping me with some information about that bike. It's called a Whisperjet model. Again, made during the time, I believe, when Arctic Enterprise owned General Appliance. So without any further ado, let's feature some of those General Appliance bikes in the montage. Very nice.
Yeah, very cool.
So I hope to do that with other brands, but again, Trail Horse being my favorite, and you can see that in a lot of those, people have swapped out the old Tecumsehs, and originally some of these earlier ones did have Briggs as an option. Apparently, the Briggs and Stratton company stopped selling engines to mini bike makers, I gather, from product liability concerns. So Tecumseh was the only company at some point that was supplying them. But now with the, the ease of these Predator motors, people are doing a lot of those swaps. And, as far as the vintage goes, that's not for me personally, but I know I'd rather see somebody enjoying the hobby, so if that's what somebody does to get into the hobby and that's their take on it, I would certainly encourage them not to cut it up. And just like when somebody, modifies a car and puts an LS engine, does an LS swap or something, if they can do it correctly and do it tastefully, I think that's nice. And there's, again, room for everybody in the hobby.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's better than seeing it going to the junkyard, cut up for scrap.
Yep. Right. Exactly. Like Mike Castle had said, he did a customization of that bike because, he felt the frame was not restorable, didn't have original paint, etc. So, a lot of these bikes, unfortunately, have been crushed over the years, How many thousands of them have gone?
Oh, yeah.
And a bike like that at a flea market would sell for how much? The one
I can tell you how much that was offered for. It was offered for $500. And when you start breaking it down for parts, that's a pretty good bang for the buck. Now that, that bike, you probably could, clean it up a little bit and call it a survivor, maybe recover the seat, that kind of thing. But once you start really going through to restore something, to show quality, you're really going to spend a lot of money. So people always ask, what's going to cost to restore a bike? Well, there's money might not be a limit, to how much you're going to spend. What kind of paint job are you talking about? Are you going to, a lot of people go powder coating, figuring it's a little cheaper. And there's pros and cons to paint versus powder. There's different wheel treatments. So, there's vapor honing, there's burnishing. To really get it authentic, it takes a lot of time, a lot of skill to really restore a bike authentically. So it's really representative of its original, original roots. But that's not always everyone's goal. I'm just excited that people are interested, and they want to ride it. And to me, you're going to need to replace the tires if you're going to ride it. The old, tires are not going to hold up over time. Some people would prefer to have a show bike that isn't ridden, and that's okay too. I'm okay with that as well. So we got one more video to show. How's the comments coming in, Mike?
Yes, let me check on that. We've got comments aplenty. Let's see. We've got okay. Tony Davey says Bixby text. Oh, a medal from Paradise, California. Get a psychologist in here and break us all down. Says, Zavis from Alaska Railroad says that Polaris would look very nice displayed next to, I don't know. I'm having trouble reading this, but it sounds like they're enjoying this and they like the comment. I
think so. I'm not sure if he's encouraging the psychologist to get involved or discouraged. Tony, I encourage you to discourage that idea, please.
Yes. Once you started pulling that thread, everything just unravels.
So his Siri voice text probably got the better of him and was kind of duplicating.
Yeah, something like that.
Now that makes sense, Tony. Thank you for clarifying, because we were concerned about what you were doing in the mini bike shed right now.
Yes. And then David from Alaska Railroad says, what was the largest engine ever put into a mini bike? That's an excellent question.
Well, the majority of them had 5 horsepower or later. These early ones were, fueled by 2.5s, 3s, 3.5s. Some of the larger models, 4s and 5s. But as bikes grew, if you will, the Bronc, for instance, I believe had 6 horses. Typically, 7 is common as for some of these. So as far as that goes, I would say that in the Tecumseh line early years, it was up to 5 horsepower.
Sure. And then Vince Cuoco says choppers must be rare.
They are rare.
Ken McGee has a good question. How many different models did Trail Horse make?
Well, with the Trail Horse itself for those years, there was, I believe, probably about 6 of the main models. My good friend Tom Dreswicki could probably tell us the number in his sleep, how many actual models there, but it was Trail Horse, Trailblazer, Whisperjet. So they did have some variations on it. And
Sure.
the engines, like for instance, that one we saw from John Komar, that was the GTO 300, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think that had the 3.5 horse. It's either 3
Gotcha.
or 3.5.
And then Wes Parker says Briggs and Stratton forever with a big thumbs up. Vince Cuoco is asking what colors were offered for the chopper.
I know black was one of the colors, and I know purple at some point was one of the colors. But beyond that, I'm not really seeing too much literature. I have some black and white literature, so I'm not really sure about what really the color line was for the different models. That's a great question. I'm maybe Tom will jump in with an answer for us.
Sure. And then Robert Whitaker says, I agree with you about the engine choice. He says you got to keep the interest in the hobby going no matter what our feelings. True, because there's all different kind of feelings. And then Mike Castle says it's a lot like cars. You spend more restoring than what you'd probably make selling it. I've got way too much money in my little Indian 5000 restoration, getting it back from paint this week. We'd love to see pictures or video of that once it's back. Michael Cody says, saw a few of mine in that general appliance montage. Cool. And then the last comment we've got here, Dave Trim says, I had a Snowjet Trailjet when I was a young kid, 4 horsepower. Anyone ever seen one of those?
That's interesting because I'm a Snowjet guy and I don't remember one, to tell you the truth. That must be pretty rare.
Yeah, for sure.
Bud has a new project.
Yeah.
I
myself a Trailjet.
That's your homework assignment, Bud. Track those down for us, would you please?
Yeah, right. And it's funny because I have a lot of Snowjet literature and I cannot for the life of me remember anything. I'm not saying it's not true, but I just never seen it.
Yeah. Sure. This might be a good time to show that Polaris Star Car and talk about that a little bit.
Yes, and a comment about this. This is from a mutual friend of Bud and mine, Jason Gibbs. He was at that show in 2019, and he this is just a quick 40-second clip, but he's going to show us his Star Car, his Polaris Star Car. Let's take a look.
1969 Polaris Star Car that I restored. There's very few of them still around. This one runs and drives. I really haven't drove it that much, but it does work. I did a lot of the stuff myself. I sent some of the chrome out and had the chrome done. The motor does run. Everything works like it should. There's a lot of the steering wheel stuff is original. The seat, the roll bar. There's a 372 Fuji in it, single cylinder. Original tires, original wheels. I would say it probably hasn't been used or abused all that much. So that's what I can tell you about it.
Never saw or heard of one of those myself.
It's funny, Mike, did you take that video from the Goffstown show?
Yes, 2019.
Okay, that was. I was going to say that looks like the info sheets from Goffstown.
Sure. Oh, on the windshield there. I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And then, talking about the Snowjet, Dave Trim says he's going to look for images of that. So we appreciate that.
Great. That'd be nice.
Ken McGee says the Star Car is a killer. Here we're getting a lot of feedback on the Star Car. David from Alaska Railroad says, love that Star Car. Would love to own one.
Yeah,
they are cool for sure.
Absolutely. But you should have one more for collector Kenny McGee. That was actually the opening photo on our podcast live feed was his taco mini bikes. That's the one with the rows of tacos.
Yes. Let's take a look.
My name is Kenny McGee. I live in sunny Fresno, California, and I'm a junkaholic, for sure. Truly, I am a vintage mini bike enthusiast, and we're about to go in the shop, and I'm going to show you a couple mini bikes. All right, so I used to kind of have these in order, but not so much anymore. This first one here is a bike I just kind of got finished restoring. It's a 1965 Taco 22. They call it a burrito. And the reason is, see the way the frame bolts together right there? And then on the rear kicker there. So that's just before they started making the 22, they made that and they called it the burrito. This one here, this is the earliest one I have. It's called the Golden Taco. That's the very first Taco style mini bike they made. The rear shocks are plastic. That bike came from a collector, Taco Bill, as well as the one next to it came from him. Boom, on down the line. So these are what they call a Model 55. These are a Model 33 or a Taquito. They've changed through the years. See the way the motor is supported by that swing arm swings off of that pivot right there, believe it or not. So not a great design. That's probably why they didn't make it for more than a year or two. Another burrito there. That's a 65. You can see the purple paint underneath that orange. I don't know how good the forks are gonna come out, but, and then that one there, that's a 1968 Taco 22, all original. Original paint, original engine, original tires. On the subject of tires, I'm really weird about tires. Every bike in here has original style or made in that era tires. All right, so the top row, I'll start on the far left. That is going to be a 2nd series Frijole. The red one next to it is a 1st series Frijole. There's no order to these. The difference is the 3rd one, that's a 2nd series. And then the one with the Garbro front wheel on it, that's a 1st series. You see the way the seat kind of has that prop up in the back, and then the 2nd series doesn't have it, it's just flat. That's the difference. The Frijoles were sold as a kit, so there's no serial numbers on those. This yellow one, I bought at the Pomona swap meet years and years ago. It has a dealer sticker on the frame, so that's original paint, that yellow one. Then there's another burrito, the blue one. Next to that is a 69 Taco 44. Then there's a 68 Taco 44. 69 Taco 44. 68 22 and a 69 22. This bike here on the bottom, that's a T100. Got the big wheels, 5-horse engine. That's original paint, original seat. Pretty clean bike. Well, I mentioned earlier that I was kind of weird about original wheels and tires. Here is a few of what I've been able to come up with. Garage is a mess. I apologize. All this junk right here is stuff I'm shipping out on eBay. But yeah, wheels, tires, vintage, it's an issue. I've even got some more over here in this corner. Some new old stock precision wheels down there. I don't know how much time you guys want me to spend on this, and I love the two-strokes. Look at these bad boys. 3 carburetors. There's one sticking out the backside too. Those are West Bends. More tacos, 22s. That one right there is a 66 or early 67. There's a little difference on the rear frame, and that's the one I had as a kid. Not the exact bike, but that's the frame style I had. There's another T100, all original paint, original engine. Not quite as clean as the one on the end, but hard to find them original. Let me tell you, I scrounge for these things, and when I find them, and they got stuff welded on them, booger welds you gotta fix. It's really hard to find frames that aren't modified. This orange one right here, the American Eagle, that bike was made for 1 year only, 69. Steens made it for that company, so it's virtually a Taco 22 with a different seat. Kind of rare though. Doodlebug, little Montesa Trials bike. Some of this junk. This bike here, I'm cloning the Taco Tri-Pointer. And if you're familiar with the early mini bike guide magazines, you know the bike I'm talking about. And I got permission from the dude's daughter that built it to clone it. So I'm working on it. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap this up and we'll do some more later. Thank you, Ben, for asking me to contribute to this. Kind of an honor, man. I watch all your stuff, and I know these people through Facebook only, really. So maybe one day I'll get to a meet back there and we'll get to meet everybody. But anyway, for now, this is how we do it on the West Coast.
Where do you begin, Rob? What do you think?
That's a big collection. He's been collecting that for a while. And he collects everything, that guy.
I was telling Mike we have to get him on the Muscle Car podcast. We'll have him start one of those Corvettes.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Right there.
Very nice.
He
Now,
sure got a big collection.
For guys like Kenny, I offer free clean-out services, just for anyone's information.
Go over there with a 26-foot U-Haul there and fill it right up.
Yeah, he obviously is very dedicated to the tacos and knowledgeable about those. And it's really the originality of it. You can see he really values that in terms right down to the tires and really trying to have those bikes authentic. And as you look through there, there's just a lot of really nice bikes there.
Now, Bud, at your Goffstown show, have you ever had any of the taco bikes there?
I can't tell you for sure. After almost 20 years of running that show, it's a blur what's been there. I can tell you a few odd ones like the Cushman. We've got a young man that he has a Honda Express. It's a newer, but he drives that over 60 miles to get to the show.
Crazy.
The guy with the Cushman, he's more local to Goffstown, but he drives it to the show. And then you've got the guys like Gary Chafee, who's got a variety of things, from pocket bikes. He's got a mini Bambino. He's got a couple other different Indians, some Hondas. He's got a Honda Christmas special. I mean, you never know what's going to come in. It's kind of crazy. And this young man, Austin Weed from up in Vermont, Green Mountain Motors is the name of his company. And the bike that I was talking about earlier is an Abenaki Special. It looks pretty much like a bicycle. It was converted to a mini bike by way of adding an engine. That one right there in the back.
In the back, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, we got get quite a variety year to year that comes in.
Well, very good. Well, we've been at this for a little over an hour and a half, and honestly, that's a long time, but it's really flown by if you ask me. We covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, very interesting stuff.
We've got comments that have stacked up. Would you like me to go through them real quick before we
let's do
wind
that.
it down?
We'll do a wrap up, and then we'll call it.
Then we'll wind it down. Yeah. Okay. So David from Alaska Railroad saying, "Wow, many awesome bikes there. Very nice." This is 2 videos ago. And then Ken Crozier talking about the Polaris Star Car says that was meant to take your motor out of your snowmobile and use the same motor in the Star Car for the summer. They stopped making them because they were too fast, which I can imagine. You get a 340 or a 440 in there. Vince Cuoco says good night from Vinny's Minis in Florida. Karen Krause says rest in peace, David Miller from the video prior there, who was building those bikes. Robert Whitaker says, thank you guys for putting this together, but more important is the community that it creates. He says, Ben, I'll be in touch. I'll try to put something together that you can use. And yes, we love this sense of community with people interacting with us and sharing videos and doing things live and all of this. Here we go. Whit Pearson says, excellent show, guys. Thank you for that. There was some from the outage on YouTube, but I'm skipping those because we've already kind of addressed that. Mike Castle says, great collection, Kenny. I think I have a Taco 22 review from Mini Bike Guide. He's going to send you via gifts if you don't already have it. Robert Whitaker says, nice tacos. I share this addiction. LOL, lots of history in that garage. Mark Ito says, nice taco collection. Doug Grawl says, awesome collection, Ken. Ken McGee says, thank you, guys. Those were Ken's bikes we were just looking at. Ed Kubiez says, epic collection, Ken. And Brad Chupik says, beautiful collection. And we're caught up on the comments. I'll let you close out the show.
Great. Final thoughts, Rob?
I didn't realize there were that many different kind of mini bikes out there. And people collected that many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a few of the names, but really, like Rob said, it's amazing how many different makes there were over the years.
For sure. Absolutely. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Same here. I just enjoyed seeing the bikes around when I was a kid. I can't say I'm any kind of expert on them. I just have good memories of seeing them around. And now that we're going down this rabbit hole, it's like, wow, there's a lot down in that rabbit hole.
Yeah, there is.
It's wonderful.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same when you go in the snowmobile, not to change subject, but, people think nowadays there's like 4 or 5 makes, but, some people will say, well, yeah, there's been about 100. Well, there was over 400 different makes when you total them all up by different manufacturers. It's crazy. And, the same thing with the mini bikes. I assume it was most of the bigger companies, lawn and garden companies, looking for an alternative for sales, and amazing how many were out there. Just absolutely amazing.
Yes. So I appreciate all of our viewers watching tonight, and thank you for supporting the podcast. This has really been a journey for me personally, but also just that building of sense of community. I'm really proud to be a part of that, and I look forward to everyone's active participation in the future podcast. We're second Sunday in August, second Sunday in September, and then we'll replay shows, and then we'll pick back up sometime in the spring. And so we'll be looking for video footage from shows around the country, from your own collection. And I know several people have already volunteered to give me some material, so keep that footage coming. Thank you very much.
Please share with us.
And have
Great
a good
show.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone.